Hi, everyone. My name is Lori Black. I'm the Associate Director of the Lowell Milken Center for Music of American Jewish Experience here at UCLA at the Herb Alpert School of Music. We are very excited to be presenting part two of a workshop with the amazing Deborah Strauss and Dan Blacksberg. If for anyone that was at the first part of this workshop, I mean, it really got into some interesting topics related to music. We were all standing and moving, and I can only imagine what's in store for us tonight. So I'm so glad that you are all here. This project, the Klezmer workshops that we host, are made possible in part by the David Vickter Foundation and our dear friend Fran Feynman, who is at many of our programs. So with that, I think we can go ahead and jump right back in. So I'm going to go ahead and spotlight for every. Is Dan still here? Ah, there he is.
I'm still here.
He's still here. And everybody, Deb Strauss and Dan Blacksberg.
Yay.
Hooray!
All right. So, Dan, you want to introduce the
Yes, well,
first tune?
Laura, you said you can't wait to see what's going to happen this time, but I got to tell you, it's more of the same. So, what we've been working on, this program. This is Lori asked us to do this version of our. We had the sequence at Yiddish New York that we developed called Klezmer How You Play It, which was a combination of movement and language and music, and it's the idea that we're kind of getting in tune with all of the stuff, like the sort of not DNA is a very harsh word, but like the sort of the genome of the Yiddish music, right? With the idea, it's like what would be useful for us to sort of have a really good grasp of, that we then can go encounter all this other klezmer, Yiddish song, Hasidic music, cantorial music, art song, all this Ashkenazic music that we love, and that kind of falls under our klezmer umbrella or Yiddish music umbrella. Right, Deb?
Yeah. I just want to check my sound for a second because I just had a little trouble with my microphone. It turned a new color that I've never seen before.
Hooray!
It turned hot pink.
Well,
You
that's
can hear
good.
me okay?
Everything sounds good so far.
Great. Never mind with the mic then.
Yeah, yeah. Hot pink is nothing. So yeah, I think that the idea is, so what we covered last time was that we covered a piece by the great violinist a recording of the great violinist Leon Schwartz, which was sort of it is the piece can be found on the CD, whatever it's called. There's the Leon Schwartz CD,
Like in a
and
different world.
like in a different world. It's such a nice title, actually. But and it's
It's a
his
beautiful title.
rendition of part of the Torah blessing, right? Asher Nasan Lanu, and we dealt with the words. We dealt with the Yiddish pronunciation of the word of the Hebrew, which it really front loads everything, and then we learned the tune from the vocals, and then we learned the tune from his violin playing the same song after hearing him talk about his upbringing, education. And so that was sort of like dealing with Ashkenazic pronunciation of Hebrew, Ashkenazic enunciation of a melody that accompanies a prayer melody. So we want it. This is klezmer how you play it, right? This is sort of like, how do you play this stuff? What if you grew up in that world? What would you know? What would you sort of have internalized? And that's sort of how we're approaching this. Is like we don't get to grow up in that world. Maybe you do. I don't. I didn't. And so it's like, what have we kind of internalized, or what would sort of, it's like fast tracking. What could you what would you internalize to sort of fast track you to get a really strong sense, feel really grounded when you're in the when you're encountering all this Yiddish music. Okay, so right, logistics. So thanks everybody for being here. What we are gonna stop plenty of times for question and answer periods. We say it's okay to put questions in the chat, and will everybody be able to see those? But please don't make a conversation in the chat. So unless it's a question like, I can't hear them, or my screen went off or something like that, one way you could do that is try to chat Lori directly, or you can and if that's something like that, maybe someone can chime in to answer. But if it's like, you know, what's the source of what's the relationship of the Russian army to early American klezmer music recordings? And it's like that's a great question, but like that's not the conversation that we want to get going in the chat while we're talking about something else. So, great. So tonight we're going to be working on another tune that the recording of which recently sort of came around on Facebook in the Baragovsky group. And it's called a share, but we're not really sure about these names ever. And it feels a little fast. And Deb pointed out it's not in an even it's not in a 8 or 16 bar phrase. So it might be a little hard to dance a share to it. But it's a great tune, and it's got some Yiddish lyrics that go right along with it. And so this is going in the same direction where it's like, here's a Yiddish tune. This is a very Jewy tune. And we're going to we can sort of use the language to kind of bite into it. Last time we really focused on the melody. This time we're going to really focus a little more on sort of center the rhythmic playing a little more. And in light of that, being the instrument that I am, I'm going to start us off, but we're going to learn this tune. We're going to learn it the way we love to learn it, which is by ear and by mouth. We love singing these things because it's like I dream that someone's going to come along with a bunch of like modern educational research and be like, did you know that when you learn in an embodied way, it really does this different thing for your brain? And we'll be like, yeah, we actually do know that. We've been doing that for years. One thing I'll say is that last night I was teaching a klezmer ensemble at Temple University. I was outside before the class started, and my one student was talking with a student from the school who never took klezmer. And he's like, oh, dude, you should take klezmer, blah, blah, blah. Starts singing a song we learned 4 semesters ago because we learned it, and they've never forgotten it. And so this is why I always say, like, give in to the singing, really go for it, because you will actually remember it forever, whether you want to or not. Okay, so cool. Let's, okay, cool. So we're going to learn this song. I called this Odessa Share. There will be sheet music later, but that's only because it's called a share. The recording was made in Odessa. That's not a real name. It's just the tune that does this thing. So, what did I say? That's better. So, all right. Let's just get that much. We'll do it like 4 times. Again. Good. So, well, I could sing that better. Let's see. Right? Let's try that a couple times. And this is a great instance where, if you were here with us last time, we always talked about how often klezmer, everything in Yiddish music is really on the beat. It's so on the beat. For whenever I work with jazz musicians, I'm always like, stop swinging, stop being so funky. You have to be funky in like the opposite direction, like the inverse direction. So, but this is actually an interesting spot, which we'll talk about later, about where offbeats can show up. So, right? See if you can just really sing that and feel the down up, right? Right? So let's just get the cadence. Right? Second half of the A section is right, and you can add eighth notes and the quarter notes if you need some momentum. Like, I wouldn't do it if I was playing. I'd probably go da 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 da, but you can go da 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 da. That's not going to bother anybody, which is another reason why it's great to learn this stuff by ear, so you can sort of do what you need to do to play the melody in your own way, and you're not going to see that on the chart because that's like the standardized blah blah blah, Anyway, so Die, die, yada, die, die, and die, die, yada, die, yada, die, yada, die, yada, die, 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 yada, die, die, and die, die, yada, die, yada, die, yada, die, yada, die, yada, da, die. That's how long it would happen in the tune. Let's do it two more times. Yai die yada die 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 da die yai da die yada die yada die ay yai yada da die yai die da die 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 da die yada da die ay yada da die. Okay, cool. How's that going for everybody? Let me go on gallery mode so I actually can see. Cool. People are getting somewhere with that. Don't worry, if you haven't gotten it yet, we're going to do it a lot more. Let's do it two more times. We'll do it one more time, as in two more times, and then we'll go on to the B section, because the B section is quite nice. And then there's this sort of C section that wraps it all up. I love this tune quite a bit. So. Yai die yada die 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 yada die yai da die yada die yada die 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 yada da die ay yai die da die die and die die da die 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 da die 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 ay die die da da die ay die die yai die die die. Okay, we'll get to that. We'll get that. So. Yai die, yai die, die, die. Amazingly, this is the hardest part for me to remember because I have to differentiate it from all the other ones of those, whatever those are. Yai die, 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 die. It's very clear that's what it is in this tune. Yai die, 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 die. Oh, cool. Yai die, 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 die. Cool? Yai die 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 die. Now let me hear you. Just kidding. Yai die 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 die. Yai die 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 die. We're lucky it repeats. So that's the first half of this B section after the thing, right? So die 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 die. Yai die 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 die. Yai die 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 die. All right. Now there's which note? What's the next note? Could be yai die da da die die. Could be yai die da da die die. I don't really care about that, but it is definitely die die da die die yai die die da da die. So that's this little bit. So we had yai die 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 da die yai die 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 yai die da die die yai die die da da die. Let's do that second half. Yai die da die die yai die die da da die. One more time. Yai die da die die yai die die da da die. So the call. Yai die die. First half. Yai die 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 yai die 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 yai die da die die yai die die da da die. Same thing. Yai die 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 yai die 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 yai die 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 yai die da die die yai die die da die. Woo. Okay, let's let that sink in for a minute. What are some things that have happened here that are really nice? We've gone to the relative major. We got some similar rhythmic phrases from the first section. We have a really nice cadence in major. There's so few tunes that actually go to major and then cadence in major. Most of the time they go to major, but then they still cadence back in the minor, All right. If we were all together in person, I'd go, who remembers how this starts? But I remember how it starts. So that's okay. You're lucky. You're in luck. I die. Yai die die die, I die 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 die, I die 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 die, I die da die die, I die die da die. Whole thing again. Yai die 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 die, yada die 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 die, die 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 die, yai die yada die die, yai die die da die. Whew. Now, this is my favorite part because it's like a little summary of everything that's happened. It goes like this, but it's all stuff you know already. All right. This is it's not enough to call it a C section. When I wrote out the chart, I was like, should I put a C there? And it's like, nah, it's just like it's like a summary. This is like the in conclusion. More tunes should have this. It goes, yeah, da 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 da, yeah, da 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 da. Right? Isn't that nice? You see what you see? It's like I don't even know. I mean, I could draw a map for it, but I don't know what to call it. There must be like a literary or like a poetic name for this exact thing, right? That's my guess. Okay, so da 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 da. I always have to make that gesture. I don't know why. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. It's the classic Jewish thing. Are we there yet? No, Mashiach's not here yet. Anyway, so that comes after the B section, right? Let's sing the B section. This tag, this summary, and then you're in conclusion, and then we'll go back to the top, and we'll loop it maybe 2 times, and then we'll start moving over to these instruments, right? Let's see if we're still on key. Wow. Lucky me. I'm having a stable day. All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3, here. Sorry, I forgot which part we were starting on. It's B section, major. I die, I die, die, die. I die, 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 die. I die, 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 die. I die, yada, die, die. I die, die, da, da, die. Repeat. Hi, ya, ya, ya. I die, 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 die. Yada, die, die, da, da, die, die. Yada, die, yada, die, die. I die, die, da, da, die. Thesis, da, da, die, da, da, die, yada, die. Die, 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 da, da, die. Yada, da, da, die, da, da, die, da, da, die. Yai, die, da, 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 to the top. Yai, die, yada, die. Yai, die, die, da, da, die. Yai, da, da, die, da, da, die, da, da, die. Yai, die, da, da, die. Yai, die, da, die, 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 da, da, die. Yai, da, da, die, da, da, die, da, da, die. Yai, yai, da, da, die. Yai, yai. Ay, 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 die, 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 die. Ay, die, 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 ay, die, die, da, 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 die, yay, die, die, die. Yay, die, 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 die. Yana, die, 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 die. Yana, die, yana, die, die. Ay, die, die, da, da, die. Die, da, da, die, da, da, die, da, da, die. Die, 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 da, da, die. Da, 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 die, da, da, die, da, da, die. Ay, 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 ay. Yes. Deb, you can mute yourself. Get into it.
Yeah, okay. So it's an awesome tune. It's a new tune to me. I think to Dan it was also new.
Something. It was in, I mean, obviously it definitely sparked something. Sparked joy.
And what I wrote in the chat is I want you to think about, does it sound like a nigun? Does it sound vocal? And although part of our whole philosophy is that you take every tune and turn it into a nigun. That actually Dave Terrace said that. Everything, can, like, there are tunes that he learned, like ba-dum, yai ba-bum, bum, ya-bum, ba-bum, bum, that he remembers singing. And so we always want to distill it down to a singable nigun. And it goes back and forth. A lot of times nigunim come from instrumental tunes, tunes come from nigunim, but it's all about singing nigun. But some things feel inherently nigun-like. And my question is, does this sound like that? And to me, it has an answer that's going to make it an interesting connection later on when we look at the other tune a little bit. So does this feel really like it wants to be a nigun, that it's very comfortable to sing at a few different tempos? Or does it feel like it's an instrumental tune that we're turning into a nigun? That's my question. Before we get on our instruments, I want to ask that question and have you think about that a little.
If anybody feels like they absolutely can just jump on that answer, feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are people in agreement? I mean, what do you say? I'd say, based on what I just did, the answer seems like it would be yes.
Yeah, I was really struck by how much it feels like a sung melody. It feels
Yeah.
really like just comfortable and lovely to sing. And I think that's worth thinking about. Well, I mean, Dan already talked about this before, is we actually found a related tune that has some, that's actually sung, that actually was sung. And it's not exactly the same. We'll tell you more about it later. But and I think that's super interesting because it doesn't feel like a dance. Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with tempo. Why doesn't it feel like a dance to you, Maureen?
It just doesn't feel like, I mean, you could dance to it, but it doesn't feel like dum dum dum, like that's not a Yiddish dance. That's what made me feel like it was a niggin.
I feel like it feels like a Cher melody. Parts of it feel like a Cher melody, and parts of it don't to me. But we'll get back to that. Let's think about that some more as Dan leads you back to your instruments.
Yeah. So let's go for it. I'm actually gonna get a mute for myself. So please pardon the interruption.
All right, while he's muting, the cadence, that wonderful, now I know it is a Jewish tune. No, it is a Jewish tune. Now I know it is a Jewish tune. Remember that those wonderful, yeah, and I don't know if that's more of a fiddly thing or a clarinet-y thing, and you do it less on, if Dan would do it less on trombone, I don't know. But a lot of times those repeated 16th notes are going to be ya yum bum bum, instead of ya da da da, and they live nicely together, right? You can do them both. Dan might do one way, I might do a different way, and even within the two, you might go ya da ya ya. Ya da ya ya ya. You might mix it up even within the little phraselet.
Yep.
So you can think about all those things.
Yes. So what I would recommend is like there is and one I actually do think one of the signs that this those are not quite Krachts. Those are more like falls. So if I say like I'll thank you for that question. So I think I think if you take this tune and you think about it as one of the things that makes it feel like a vocal melody too is that pretty much anything that feels like a fast whirl of notes can be kind of simplified into a simpler, pretty much nothing faster than an eighth note. So if you go die 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 die, you might actually have a thing where you go da ba da ba da ba da ba, but that's just a vocal. That's just a discrete note representation of someone going ya 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 die, right? Die die. So da 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 da. It's the same thing, just a little more discrete and rhythmic. If you were a trumpet player in the 1920s, you probably would play everything very discrete and rhythmic. If you're a trombone player in 2021, you probably try to play things like a violin, since it's kind of more similar than the trumpet because we don't have those nice valves, those sweet valves. Anyway, here we go. This is gonna be pretty. We'll see. What's the volume? I mean, you can still hear that, right? Nope. Sorry, it's just a situation of I live in a row home. I'll move back, so I'll play into the mic. Here we go. Is that okay? Volume? Here we go. So it's D minor. We're in D minor. But there are some E flats. Not out of the question for us klezmers. Two more times. So I started making variations. One of the things that you can feel, obviously, you can feel free to make variations yourselves, but also that it's actually like often it's kind of hard to loop things in klezmer music because that's not really like it's not a very looping friendly music in a lot of ways. But yeah. Well, anyway, we want to talk about rhythm. We're not going to get the melodies for another class. That's for next segment. Okay. If you're having trouble figuring out where that leap goes to, die, 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 da, 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 think about where it ends. Think about where it ends up. So, die, 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 da, da, die, right? So, die, 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 da, da, die. So it ends up on the F. So if it's above the F and it feels like a step, maybe it's a G. In this case, it is a G. D, G, G, F, E, F, right? So let's loop that and then we'll keep going. Unfortunately, when we all start getting back together in person, we're going to spend a lot of time on strategies of learning by ear, which then we'll actually be able to like tell if you're getting it or not. Because right now I don't know. I can hope though. I hope. Again. Okay, we're just looping that. Cool. I think we've got it. I hope we've got it. So, check this out. This is what Deb was saying. This melody is actually just. So you can just play it, walk down like that if you're comfortable. Or you can play what we sang. You dig it? Same thing. Same thing. One's not better than the other. Back in the day, there probably was an expectation you'd play it one way on one instrument and one way on another instrument. But nowadays, there's no expectation, so you could do it however you want. So that's that perfect fourth again, but now we're starting on the C, so we end up on the F. So. All right. So then we put all that together. We got die, 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 yeah, da, 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 yeah, da, 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 yeah, da, 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 da. And both of those have. This is how you can tell it's a well-made tune because yeah, da, 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 steps. Yeah, da, 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 starts with a fourth. Yeah, da, 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 steps. Yeah, da, 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 starts with a fourth again. All right, let's try it. 1, 2. Okay. How's everybody doing?
Before we go on, when
Yep.
you're ready for it, there are a lot of string players, so I actually want to add just a tiny couple of things in before we go on.
Perfect.
And a lot of real experienced string players. So some of the things about can you hear that okay? I've also got my mute on because it's quite late here. So we were talking last time about directionality. Yai ba yum bum ba yai 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 yabadai yai da da da. That G note to me is making you go to the F. Yum yai. So you might put a trill on it. That would be a place for a trill if you're wondering. And then someone asked about the Kratzen, at the cadence. And I hadn't thought of it that way because I was really into. But you could definitely simplify the melody and either do a little fall off or put Kratzen in. That's a really nice idea. Because the Kratzen not only add interest, they also propel the melody. They are rhythmic, actually. Kratzen can be very rhythmic, and they can help push the melody forward, and that's a good case of that. I don't know, Dan, if you do much with that, or if you would put Kratzen there.
It happened. So the two things that I'll just explain how this is why we focus on these sort of basic principles, because Deb's talking about this big trill, this big vibrato trill on that G, right?
Not a vibrato trill,
Never mind, whatever the hell it was. So it was his regular trill?
High and fast.
High and fast. What's that? So it's a high and fast. Okay, I hear it now.
And it stays in the same mode.
Got it. Okay, so an old cornet player might just play a straight triplet there. So they might go da 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 da. You know, and that's that all. It's the same thing. It's really the same thing. Now, correct. You could do. There's two ways that I hear. So you can actually go if you want to do that. But what we're talking about in the cadence is that's where it fits for me. And it's like da 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 da. It's this almost like it starts swinging a little bit, and that's a whole nother class also.
Yeah, and mine are different.
What?
I have Kratzen on the end of each downbeat.
Yeah, da da da.
Yeah.
Da da da. Right. So that one's totally different.
That's super interesting. So that's also instrument specific.
Yeah.
A little bit.
But the other one is definitely like the same function in the same place, right?
Yeah, that's
Even though
amazing.
It's a completely different form. It's a different thing to do.
Right.
And you can also always steal what she's doing, so that's good. Okay, cool. Let's play it 2 times, and then we'll go on and do it your way, right? But see if you can. Okay, I just want to say one more thing. If you're gonna do a huge trill like that, most likely the note that you're trilling on is on a downbeat or is on a beat. You're probably not doing that on an offbeat. You might. I'm always ready for exceptions. Probably not. Here we go. And try on. Okay. Where are we going? We're going to the major. What's the major? F. Like I said, this is the part I forget because I always want to play a different one of those things. So we're just going to loop this a couple times. That was not a correct ornament up there last time. That was just a blatted note. Anyway, so remember where we're going, right? Think about that vocal thing. Rewind your mind a little bit. There's a lot that can happen here. da 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 da. It's a lot of chromaticism that actually can happen here. Ya da da ya da 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 and da 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 and da. Depending on how fast you're going, what tempo you're going, right? You can kind of fill in between these notes in a lot of different ways. So, but vocal version is more. Right? Let's just repeat that like 3 times. Right? That's the first 2 bars. Remember, it's bye 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 ba 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 ba, right? So we're not getting that. Let's do it from ba 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 ba. Ready? All right, cool. Now remember what I said here. If you remember when I said, I don't care if it's a bum ba or a bum ba. The recording I think actually goes ya da 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 da. I like playing dun da 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 because it makes a little more symmetry, blah blah blah. But maybe I'm too symmetrical. We should be a little more mix it up. So, ya da 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 da. So remember we've been going ya da ya da 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 ya da 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 da. Just reverse it. Ya da ya da da da. Good. That's good tune writing. Whoever wrote this. So. One more time. It's that same cadence from the first section in a new place with a new meaning to it. All right, cool. And then we start back. Bum, 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 bum. Ready to try this whole section? Ready? Repeat. Okay, I just kept going, but we also, one thing I said last time is when you're learning a tune by ear, do your absolute best to figure out what you don't need to learn. Copy and paste is your friend. So if you hear ya da 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 da, well, we already learned that in the first section. It does come in a different place, but you get to like go bloop bloop, right? And then ya da 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 da. Well, that's all recap, right? That's all callbacks. That's we're pretty safe there. Okay. Let's start from the tag. Yeah, because I didn't really cover that. But da 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 da, and then da 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 da, and we're gonna go to the top. All right, and we're just gonna play the tune a couple times, and then we're gonna start figuring out how to accompany ourselves. Yeah. All right. Nope, I started in the wrong place in my head, so I wasn't ready. To the top. Woo. That's a blow with a muted. All right, great. That's the whole song. I think we have a good sense of it. Deb, anything to say or any questions that we can cover before we get into like some
before we
rhythmic
move on.
stuff?
Yeah, it's a really fantastic tune.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions? Things that have come up? Great. That's good. That's great. What did I want to? Oh, one thing that I found super interesting was that is on the B section where we're going ya 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 ay, ya 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 da 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 da. It was very. This is such a tiny little moment, but I love the tiny pointing out the tiny little moments because they expand and then feel like they're everywhere. That both Dan and I did there's something that feels like it just wants to happen. Not that's okay, that can be okay. But again, those little bubbly things, whether they're crests or added notes, like what we were talking about with the trill, that sort of push things forward, that add velocity and momentum. And I think that's a lot of their function. It's not that they're there only to because you get bored. They're there to do something often rhythmically, and that's a good transition into talking about the accompaniment. I think
Hey,
a lot
there
of
you
the
go.
melody stuff is there to push you into the next rhythmic downbeat. We talked about it a little before. Klezmer tunes generally didn't have specific names. They're known by the genre, or sometimes when there was a recording made, they would put a name on for the recording, like Dave Terrace named tunes after all of his relatives, like Zelda, Mazel Tov Zelda or something. So Dan called this Odessa Share #1 because it was recorded in Odessa. So
And it says share #1 in
yeah, it says
Cyrillic.
share #1. So it's usually just sort of they know what the tune is by singing a measure or something, and they might call it by what tune type it is, but it wouldn't necessarily have a name. And a lot of times what you'll find, I think we talked about this the other day, is that the same tune might have 3 or 4 different names.
Yep. So for example, there's the 78. That's share #1 by the Jewish Orchestra. Tells you it's really, really definitive. And it says down here, it was Jewish Wedding Orchestra, and it was recorded in Odessa in 1912. All right, cool. So that's what I called it. Anyway, rather than trying to figure out the chords, I think we're just gonna check out the chords. Now, where'd they go? There we go. You can all see this. This is the chart. And violin, sorry, it's the concert one. I can't share multiples. And it, so da 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 da. You know, honestly, these two chords this could just be a C major, and I don't care. I put too many chords in. Oh, that's the wrong version. That's why. Ha ha ha. Hold on. There we go. So we'll give a link out to this later. There's two versions of it. One is very simple. One of them has more chords. That kind of is how I would probably play it right now. So there we go. I would say let's just go through it once, and I want you to actually just hold if you play an instrument where you can sing along and hold either the root notes or multiple notes of the chords and just hold it out like this. So I can't do it, so I'll sing it like this. I'll go D minor, D minor, D, C, F, F, C, C minor, D minor, right? So let's do that. We're going to do that, but just a little slower, okay? This way, we're not going to put any rhythm to it. We're just going to see where the chords line up with the melody, which is honestly half the rhythm anyway. So, yai, die. So here we go. D minor, D minor, D minor, D, C, F, F, C, C minor, D minor, D minor, D minor, C, F, hey, C, C minor, D minor, F, 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 F. Yay, still an F, yay, G minor, G, C, G, C, F, F. See, that's what I keep doing. F, G, still an F, G, C, F, C, G, C, F, C, C minor, D, right? Okay, let's start with, since I've been going on a little bit, I'm going to leave this up. And Deb, would you mind sort of taking us through some basic violin approach to this tune?
So the thing to keep in mind, though, is that if I'm by myself, I'm going to play it straighter than I would if I were with someone else. Mm-hmm. Whether it's another fiddle or another instrument, I need to have the da cha chum cha 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 chum 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 chum, and I'm going to follow the melody quite a bit. But I'm going to make sure that you can really feel jump, 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 yum, chum, 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 yum, chum, 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 yum, chum, 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 ba, rum, ba, rum, ba, rum, yum, bum, 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 bum. Let's see what that comes out as.
You could always play along with yourself.
What's that?
You could always play with the recording of yourself. But that would be complicated. That's complicated for right now. We'll get there.
So, yeah, we made a little recording that Dan's going to play along with. I think what I've been trying to do, and I think that's a really good thing for you to do if you don't have something in your mouth, is to sing it and play it at the same time. And I'm not great at it. There are people who really are able to do this beautifully, but it's still worthwhile to try it. Okay, so important things are when there's little harmonic movement, you want to be simpler. So and this is very true if you're playing sort of a Bulgar feel and there's a chord change in the middle, you don't do a Bulgar feel, you go into 2 there. If the harmony is going to change, you want to have it be simpler. And again, this kind of pushing into the new melody or harmony. So I do a pattern. Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm really feeling those yum bum bum ba. Dan and I were talking about those. They're really lovely, and how much you want to pull that out is sort of, you got to find your balance between having it be wonderful and having it be too much. I think it's really important to feel this yum bum 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 yum bum 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 yum bum bum yum bum yum bum nai 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 yum ba yum bum ba yum bum bum. Okay, does that make a little sense? Does that feel different? Does it feel what you would expect?
Bounces a bit.
What's that?
Feels like it bounces a bit more.
Yeah, I feel like there's really this feeling of yum, 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 of constant forward motion, and the accompaniment wants to do that. It's like the accompaniment is filling out the melody. It's not a separated thing. It's not an accompaniment here and a melody over there. The accompaniment grows out of the melody.
Right. I like to think of it as it's not like the relationship of like a jazz soloist and a rhythm section, and it's not like the relationship of a concert soloist and a concerto soloist and an orchestra. It's really it's more of the relationship of a person who's playing lead in a chamber group. You know, it's like I'm sure there's classical music that runs by very strict rules in terms of what roles each instrument plays, and that's the same kind of thing as here. And breaking out of those rules, which is just more common in classical music and less common in folk music, but it's the same kind of balance. So what I want to do is I want to take us through a couple, because we're talking about like sort of DNA or genomic ideas here. Deb just revealed a bunch of them. And what I want to do is I want to take us through this song in thinking about the different rhythmic layers, right? Which is really the different things that you bring out or that you piece together to create your individual part as an accompanying instrument. Whether you're a bass line and you're just doing quarter notes, although in this case you probably hit some of those offbeats, or a piano player or an accordion player, left hand, where you're basically just playing very smooth, traditionally just playing very smooth oompa rhythms, or you're a trombonist or a violinist when there's a lot more dynamic pieces being weaved together. This also is useful. Think about it. We said this is like a niggin, right? So we have what do Hasidim do? They pound tables, right? They pound the table on the half notes, right? So they go yai dai da da dai 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 dai. So I need everybody to do this actually, like. So yai dai yada dai 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 dai, and the idea is like what notes of the melody is this bringing out, right? Dai 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 yai dai 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 dai, then yai dai yai dai 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 yai dai 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 yai dai 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 yai dai 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 That was just a tune with no repeats because we only have so many minutes. So if you play, you don't play only half notes, but if you went wom, dum, 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 right? That's already, you can see what the goalposts, like what you get from emphasizing those points by doing that. As a melody player, it also shows you how you can pack, where you have flexibility in the melody based on that rhythmic layer, right? So second is quarter notes. What does this suggest? It makes you think of a slightly different thing. Right? You see how it emphasizes different notes? It brings out different things that you might make as part of your line, right? Third is in this particular tune has this kind of dum bum 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 bum, right? There's actually an Arabic dance rhythm, Middle Eastern dance rhythm that is that rhythm, which I always think is funny that like this thing from there really shows up in these Bulgars or these Freilachs or something, or these Nigunim somewhere secretly. It's even more multicultural. So anyway, this won't work all the time, but let's see where it goes. So try this. So it's die 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 die. It's actually what it is a mirror image of each other, by the way. It's a palindrome rhythm. Die, 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 die. All right? So you probably don't play all that. You probably go, die, 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 die. There's so many different ways. So it's like how eighth notes. We're not going to cover eighth notes, although that will reveal something else. But those are built into the quarter notes. I'll explain in a second. Fourth thing, the Bulgar rhythm. I don't think I can sing this and play it. So I already lost it and started doing this. But if you start freestyling this stuff, let's do that. Let's do it one time. Freestyle of all these things. So you have half notes. We're not really going to half notes sometimes. Quarter notes, Bulgar rhythm. Dun da 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 da. And then, could be eighth notes, but probably just do quarter notes and think eighth notes. Like ba, right? So open, close, open, right? On, off, right? That's better for eighth notes than going like, because not every eighth note is marked that way in this music anyway. So freestyle the clapping. Just let yourself go with the melody, because that's actually how you're supposed to do it. I love that. Just see, this is why it's so great to teach this with Deb, because she's just nodding. And I'm like, good, cool. I didn't make this up. Well, I mean, I did also make it up. But anyway, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ya die ya die 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 ya die 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 ya die 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 ya die I always mess that part up.
Yeah,
You see?
that is awesome. I love that.
Yay. Me too.
Can I add a couple things either now or in a minute?
Yes. Add them now.
Okay, so I just want to physicalize it because that's like one of the things that Dan and I share so much is getting this really in the body. So a couple of things. This is such a great tune to look at all of these elements. The melody with the clapping, you're always feeling like you're sitting here, you're moving, and then you're coming back. You're moving and you're coming back. So I was sort of doing yai ba yum bum ba yum ba ya bum bum ba yum bum bum yum bum 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 ya yum bum 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 ba yum bum ba dum ba yum ba bum ba yum bum ba dum. Does that make a little bit of sense? You're sort of sitting, you're moving, and then you have to come back. If you just keep going, it's not going to feel groovy.
You'll fall over eventually.
You'll fall over. The other little thing I just want to take 1 minute to do, because a lot of you have done this with us already. I know it doesn't work for everybody, but you're having to think of all of these different layers at once. It has to be in your body. You can't rely on the bass player or the trombone player to have these other layers to add them and be there. You have to feel it.
Definitely can't rely on the trombone player.
The whole thing you have to feel, so that by yourself, if you only played any one line, you would still really feel that it's whole and groovy. And that's because you're feeling all these different layers of a cake at the same time. So very quickly, something that Dan and I both have been doing a lot when we've been together is if you stand up. We did this a little last time. I just want to remind you of some of the feeling of all the layers that Dan was talking about. And for me, if I do it with my feet and where the placement is with my feet, it's very helpful. Doesn't work for everybody. Jeff doesn't like this. He doesn't think this way. But even if you're a little uncomfortable with it, it's a good exercise. So you've got the very strong beat. Strong.
Boom.
Boom. Boom. Boom. You've also got your backbeat, which is your right leg. So forward, back, forward, back, forward, back. But if you're just doing this without your knees, how does that feel? Kind of lousy.
Stodgy.
Really lousy. So what you also want is to have a little spring in your step. So you've got boom, 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 boom. So far you've got a strong downbeat. You've got a little bit of a backbeat with your back foot, and you've got a bounce. So all of these will become sound. They're all sound, or you're feeling them and feeling them in the melody. If you're just playing melody, you're still feeling all of these layers. Now, my coolest favorite one is that if you have a Bulgar feel in here, the syncopation happens between your legs. So when you're not on either foot. So it's dum. And if you notice you have downbeat with two little knee things, then the syncopation in between, and then you step on your back leg. And our friend Stu Brotman coined sort of, it's a Bulgar, I'm playing, it's a Bulgar, I'm playing, it's a Bulgar, I'm playing, it's a Bulgar, or it's not a Bulgar, I'm playing, it's not a Bulgar, I'm playing. So for me, because I'm very physical, and I think Dan is the same way, that if you think where things fall in your body, you just had 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 elements just from that little dance.
Yep. It gives you the big beat, gives you the sense of which is the big beat, which is the smaller measure, where the quarter notes are, and the eighth notes, because you have 1, 2, and then you have 1 and 2, 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and 1 and 2. So the next time either you're a violinist, you go yon dun 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 yon dun yon dun yon dun dun yon dun dun, right? Or if you're a trombone player or a saxophone, and you go. Then it's there, so it's not da 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 da. It's yum bum bum ba dum bum bum ba yum bum bum ba dum bum bum. That's exactly what we just did. Yum bum bum ba dum bum bum ba yum bum bum ba dum bum. Let's all try that, right? D, F, A, F, D minor chord, 1, 3, 5, 3, very nice. 1, 5, 3, 5, also very nice. Yum, bum, 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 yum, bum, 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 bum. But you have to vary it up a little more. This is a little, because it contains the bass line. Huh, 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 huh. You get it? Let's just loop that for a minute. And what you do is, when you embody something in music, you don't actually physically do it when you play. You take that and you distill it through the instrument. This is very true with brass players. It's so easy for brass players to be like, I'm playing high, I'm playing low. Very bad for your back. Anyway, so just join in. Were people able to dig on that? Yes?
And did you notice I can hear that Dan he's playing the melody. When he's playing those rhythms, he's actually playing the melody. You can feel the melody in what he's doing. Either if it's, sometimes you're a little you're filling a space where the melody isn't, but he's got the melody, and I felt it so deeply that it grooved on the melody.
Yeah,
and that's really important, and it's hard. It's really important.
Well, okay, so this is actually important. If you really want to learn how to do this stuff, you actually have a large repertoire of 4-note and 8-note patterns, right? That you can weave together into melodies. So, for example, the first one we did. So I'll give you a couple of them. They're all 8th notes, all exactly the same articulation. Just one goes like this. Right? So I'll try that one. Okay, flip it so that you're going. If you need notes, it's D, A, F, A, right? Okay, now that would make an interesting bass line if you alternated from 1 to 3. You listen to old recordings enough, you'll find where that happens. It doesn't happen a lot, as much as 1 to 5, but it happens. Now, let's take this. You go. So, ba da 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 ba ba, right? Octave. I can't. I'm so bad at repeating these because I don't repeat them. At variation. Right? Little leading tone, C sharp. Now, last thing is what you hear on a record like an Abe Schwartz record of a Freilachs is root, 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 octave, fifth octave. I like to think of this as the drum version. When I used to play with Elaine Hoffman Watts and I wanted to really like jam with her, I avoided thirds. It felt more root, it felt more drum-like to just play roots and fifths, right? Now, there's two versions of this that you hear. One just is 4/8 notes. The next one, which is actually more common in old recordings, rests on the first beat. So it's but you add it in sometimes because you want to create longer phrases. Now, that works amazingly. That stuff works for, those patterns work for all 2/4 tunes. They work for Freilach, shares, Bulgars, Chassidals. It's slightly different the way you do it, but it's all the same for us.
Okay, what didn't he do?
What didn't I do?
What didn't he do that you would think you would do, but he didn't do it? Anybody know?
I don't know. I can't wait to find out. Oh, right.
Once in a while, you hear this in Belf's orchestra. Like sometimes you hear a little bit of this offbeat stuff, but it's within the context of a longer phrase. And that's really important because the first place we go to, and in old recordings of Michael Alpert accompanying Leon, sometimes he was doing that. But when he sort of thought about it more and over time and a lot of listening, we need the downbeat. And you can do a little bit of what Dan was doing. I think it works. Not as well on fiddle.
Yeah, no.
We really need our downbeat. You need those downbeats. So, and you need to feel them over long phrases. If you do ch, it breaks up the feel and it goes against what we're saying that each person has to feel whole. The
Right.
only time it's different is if you're in a very large band and you're playing sort of in more an American style, it would be more common to use offbeats. But in sort of an older style and I think for most of the kinds of things, not that one is old and one is new, but it makes sense to feel that downbeat and to support the downbeat. And that's really, really important.
I think that even if you take something like you listen, if you go home, if you let's say you're driving somewhere after this, you put on Klezmer Plus, you're listening to the car, you're like, this doesn't sound like what they were talking about. But I think that this is the genomic stuff, right? I think it's transformed quite a bit because we're really talking about a sound that comes from the early 20th century, maybe even from Europe in some ways, and definitely early 20th century in America. So you're talking about something in the 70s, 60s, 70s. Sound is transformed, but once you get this stuff, you can start seeing the through line. This is no replacement for studying different eras of klezmer music, right? This isn't even a replacement from studying the different styles of dance genre. This is just thinking about how you approach stuff, where and how and all the different kind of. It's like, oh, there's this many elements I consider, and they are basically these kinds of elements. Okay. That's a lot.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be in the middle. Why, when you listen to something like, did you say Klezmer Plus?
Yeah.
So if you listen to something like that, why does it sound good and not, oh God, that doesn't sound right?
Yeah, because we can find, you want to find bad Klezmer on YouTube. Easy, very easy.
Because it goes all the way back to what we said at the beginning, which is you have a context and certain things in your bones. So that feeling of an important downbeat and phrase length is still there. It's transformed, but it's still there. So they know how to do it, and you can do that too. But if you apply that to a simple chassidal and do cha 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 cha, it just all of a sudden you've moved away from the bones of the tune.
Yeah. And you can do it though, because you listen to Otozoy on that record, and it still sounds pretty dang good. But what they do understand is they understand that the downbeats are big, wide beats. They might not articulate it, but guess what? They don't have to, because they grew up in the cultural context of this music, which is the perfect segue to talking about the Yiddish lyrics that go with this song. Because Yiddish, the language, as we found with our exploration of Asher Nosson Lanu, really helped Lanu.
Lanu.
I can't even do it. I'm too American. And Lanu is, that tells you where the big downbeats are. Asher Nosson Lanu, right? It's not a sharp downbeat. It's Hoive, right?
Asher. Asher. Okay.
I'll get it one of these days.
No, it was great.
Deassimilating. I'm unassimilating. Anyway, but this is different. This has got some Yiddish lyrics, right?
I pulled out my ether cord. What will help is if you do read in Oisius, in the Hebrew Yiddish letters, you will see what's the difference between ah and aw. What's an ah sound? What mark is under that? My Yiddish studying friends. Yeah, it's a pasach, right? So that's your ah. If there's a kometz that looks like a little T, like kometz aleph aw, like in Afen Pripachik, aw. So if you look at the Hebrew or the Lashon Kodesh, you can see if it's a pasach or a kometz. It's the difference between ah and aw. And what happened is, in sort of wanting to do it in like a more modern Sephardic pronunciation, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, all the kometz and the pasach are pronounced the same.
Yep, that's how I learned it.
And Jeff tells a great, yeah, absolutely. So did I. Although I grew up in a synagogue where the majority of people were European born and were Yiddish speakers when I was little, and that was very helpful. I'm very grateful for that. And I had a chazan who was from the old country too, and I'm really grateful for those sounds in my head. So I'm going to share. I'll tell you the funny thing that Jeff says later.
This is our new tune, the screen share. I think Michael already wrote one of those. I think he already wrote that one.
Oh, God, that's awesome. Okay, here is... So, everyone can see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So this comes from the Mark Slobin Old Jewish Folk Music, Collections and Writings of Moshe Baragovsky. And what happened, the reason that we made this connection, actually, Jeff was the one who went, oh my, because we heard Ilya had posted this share. And we got to this section right here. Can you actually see my cursor? Yeah, okay. So we got to this section in the tune. Jeff heard ya da 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 ya da 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 ya 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 ya, and we were sure that we had heard it somewhere. And I actually used this in a melody, a medley that I performed. I pulled this part out, and we were like, what is it? Where was it? Where was it? And I found it here. What's fascinating, and there are like more questions now than answers, and thankfully we only have 11 minutes left, so I won't get to questions that I don't know the answers to yet. What's so amazing is that you'll see, I gave you, this is all in the Google Doc, that... all right, so look, transcribed from our Pesina, we'll go back to 33 in a minute. It's a share melody. So we already know it's a share, or what they're calling a share. And they said, go look at number 33, 40 years old dressmaker, Odessa. It's also Odessa. So the tune we learned was recorded in Odessa. This person sang this song, and it was recorded in Odessa, 1930. Melody taken from a popular wedding dance share. Now, what I found out from I looked up in Zev's book, Klezmer Music History and Memory. It's really, really important that you have this. Super, super, super important that you get a copy of this. Is that sometimes people put words to share melodies. That doesn't mean that they were done at the wedding that way. So my sort of question is, because at weddings, except for the batchen and a few particular circumstances, there was mostly not vocal music, right? Klezmer music is instrumental music, and at weddings you had a few places where you have the batchen, the wedding gesture, who made up rhymed couplets. You can look that up and learn more about that. BADKHN, batchen. But it seems to be that there was a tradition of taking popular melodies and putting words to them. So we don't have a huge amount of time. You're going to get this so you can look through the first part. But let's start really at this part. It's not exactly the same tune, but there are a lot of elements that are the same, like this shout and irregular phrases. But let's look at we're going to do it in the key that it's in here. So it's G, because all of the Berezovsky things are transcribed in the same tonal center. So it's all in G, and I think that's for comparison's sake. And then it'll tell you later in the book what the original key was. So we have... So that sounds familiar, right? Spielcha, Spielcha, Klezmer, sis schon Tage abplan. Ich hab schon euch et Chassene, hab schon euch a man. And I actually changed it. I don't like euch a man. I prefer hab schon euch a man. I like the idea that you're holding out that dissonant note a little bit longer. So Spielcha, Spielcha, Klezmer, and you'll see that it's not Evo transliteration, it's the Soviet transliteration. Spielcha, Spielcha, Klezmer, sis schon Tage abplan. Hab schon euch et Chassene. So even though it's Chassene, you might want to, I don't know the recording of it. It's hard for me to imagine that she's saying Chassene. She probably saying Chassene. Hab schon euch am Mann. Okay, what does this mean? If we had more time, I would ask for this. Spielcha, Spielcha, Klezmer. So play, Klezmorim. What did he say? It literally, it says it is already really a plan. I think that it gets translated as play musician. This is the way it is, and I'm going to do a little more research into that phrase. Okay, Spielcha, Spielcha, Klezmer, sis schon Tage a plan. Ich hab schon euch et Chassene. I've already had a wedding. I've already got a man. And the rest that's here is all syllables. And that's really interesting to look at. We won't really have time, but ta tiri ra ta ra tiri diri dam ta ra tiri diri da ta ra tiri diri dam ta ra tiri diri dam dam. It's very, very instructive. I'm curious about the la, because I would not think of using la. I would more like use like I, yada die, tiri die, ram, ta la, tiri la, ta tiri rai, tara tiri diri dam. It's very, very interesting, and you've got this. You can study this some more. The one thing that I actually just learned, so I'm going to share it with you, is about the je. The je is fascinating. What does the je do in Spielcha? So it's not Spielcha, it's Spielcha. So spielt Klezmerlach is what is that? That is an imperative, right? Spielt Klezmerlach. And if it was one person, it would be Spiel, but it's plural, so it's spielt. What does the je do? The je is part of the imperative, but it softens it a little bit. So you're not saying, play klezmers. It's like, play klezmers, play klezmorim, play klezmorim. It softens it. Spielcha, klezmerlich, sis schoin tak a plan. Ich hab schoin euch et chassene, ich hab schoin euch a man. Spielcha, klezmerlich, sis schoin tak a plan. Ich hab schoin euch et chassene, ich hab schoin euch a man. And then we're back to what we started with at the very beginning, with the words helping drive us forward and show you what's strong, where you can pull back, where you elide, because Yiddish is a language of elision. It smushes together. It's not Spielcha, klezmerlich, sis schoin taka a plan, sis schoin taka a plan. Taka a plan almost feels like it's one word. Taka a plan. Chob schoin euch et chassene, chob schoin euch a man. Chob schoin euch et chassene, chob schoin euch a man. Okay, so that was my little 7 minutes.
X's.
Yeah.
I love those X's.
The name of the book that you should all have.
I put it in there already.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a little pricey, but it's worth it.
Academic Press.
It's worth it. It's worth it. And it gives you a lot to jump off on. You know, a lot of it, you'll say, yes, I agree with that. And then there might be things that you say, I don't see anything to support that. It's great fodder. It's great. It's like we finally have a source where it's all kind of put together, and then you can work from there and develop from there. It's very exciting.
Yes, it is a lot. There's a lot to sink your teeth into there. Also, if you know, it also builds off of if you can get access to academic libraries, Zev's original article from the 90s, Bulgar is very useful. He lays out a framework for thinking about different types of music in European klezmer music that is very useful. It's reproduced in the book, but also the book goes way farther. So I find it useful to have both. It's on the internet. Bulgariaska, Bulgar, something. Because, you know, academic articles always have a title, a colon, and then more nonsense. Always. And
if you go to the new Klezmer Institute.
Do they have it?
It's actually in their resources file.
There you go. So it actually is available. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to point out how we played those eighth notes. We went ya da 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 da, or went ba 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 ba. Now what's the end of that? Ba 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 ba. It's not ba ba ba. It leads you into the next one. Ba 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 ba. So the downbeats the beats in there. Anyway, but that's the same thing as going Spielcha, Klezmer. What's the words again?
Spielcha, Klezmerlach.
Okay, Spielcha, Klezmerlach. That's just the same thing as going Spielcha, Klezmerlach. Da 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 da. Right? So you can go ya bum 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 ba ba dum bum bum ba ba da ba da ba da ba ba da ba bum 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 ba ba da ba ba bum bum bum. Right? It's just the same thing. Now, we don't have enough time for this. We definitely don't have the format for this because we can't play together. But what is important about being an accompanying instrument is playing in the spaces so that when the melody rests, you keep going. Now, mostly that's at the cadence, right? So not so much of an issue in this tune but let's say, you know, like a Bulgar where sometimes the cadence will sort of have a 2-bar or 4-beat rest at the end, you know, you got to do something there. You know, that's why we always play scales there. Although find me those in the old recordings. But it's a thing, you know, and so it's your job to keep things going and then keep things going when fill in the space with these same rhythms when the melody rests. But, or, if there's enough momentum, you got to figure this out on your own. Like, I would say for this tune, bum, die, die, da, da, die, die, dun, 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 da, da, da. You don't need to go like die, die, ba, da, da, ba, dum, bum, ba, ba, da, ba, ba, da, ba, da, ba, da, da. I mean, you could, but it doesn't. It's in the middle. Die, 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 and die, and da, 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 bum, 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 bum. That's where you need it. That's where you need it, right? Or
Yeah, and actually, I would go so far as to say that on that yum bum bye da da da, don't be you feel the pulse in you, but silence is also good. Yum bum bye da da da, yum bum 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 bum. So don't be afraid of that to do that also.
Yep, a lot of options, but you can play around with remember, we had the layers. We had the half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, and you can do all at once with your body, with the forward and the back. The forward and the back tells you where the strongest dynamics are where the dynamics are gonna be, and then you have the Bulgar rhythm in this tune in particular, and you can play around with those. But the idea is that you create phrases, so you don't just create a loop. You create something that feels like your part. You could write it out. You write your part. I've done this before with tunes. It's like, I'm going to write out my accompaniment part. I'm basically arranging, right? I'm just going to compose my accompaniment part based on the tune. And then you can start adding your own flourishes and fancy stuff once you really get deep inside of it. Okay. Cool.
Is it clear? Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm just afraid.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes I remember years ago having, through like telephone, it would come back to me. Deborah Strauss says there are no trills in klezmer music. Deborah Strauss says that, what was some of the other ones? There were some real howlers. Just because Deborah Strauss says there's never any vibrato in klezmer music. This is not a Bulgar. Everyone's clear on that, right? So what we're saying is that very often in things that are shares or freilichs, there's still that Bulgar rhythm feeling within it. But this is not a Bulgar. Bulgar is its own genre. And that's something else. Okay, that's clear, yeah? Okay. Just check it.
Great, good point. When you're only playing accompaniment parts, you can forget sometimes. But cool. So I think that any questions, or let's say any specifically questions about, like, maybe you say, I play with this blah blah blah. How can I take this to my blah blah blah? Just feel free to go for it.
Or any questions.
Or any questions, right? Yeah.
Yeah, y'all can just unmute yourselves if you have a question.
Or a comment.
I have a question. So, if I may, being that we still have at least some time where we are playing by ourselves to some degree, specifically about the accompaniment stuff, how would you recommend practicing it? You had said, one thing is like writing it out. That would be one option, like writing out an actual part. What are other ways that we could practice accompaniment?
Well, one thing first of all, you can record yourself playing the melody and then play along with your own recording. We actually were going to do that. We didn't quite get to it. There is a recording that Deb made nicely of this melody in the link, so you can actually practice along with this tune.
Yeah, but don't share it. It's really rough. Don't share it, but you can use it.
Don't share this share.
Don't share it.
And so you can do that for yourselves. Obviously there's you can actually, Michael Winograd has released 2 volumes of play along backing tracks with clarinet and without clarinet for a bunch of tunes. Now, of course, it's limited, right? It's only the tunes you get, but that's something. Another thing to do is to play along with recordings. I actually, for this rhythm stuff, you really can't. You're almost never going to get anywhere just practicing silently on your own. So I play along with old bands. That's a good way to work on it because you have there's a ton of activity. There are some great records that are actually like made for dancing. That like Christian Trio Yas has a good one. I think that playing along with Klezmer Plus or Tance or Freylichsen Hi-Fi or something from that era can be really useful. Dave Tarras trio recordings are very sparse compared to most klezmer music, so there's a lot of room to try things out in there. So yeah, there's something. That's what I would recommend.
And I don't know how you do this, Dan, but I always I did this for years. I put my headphones on and a mute, so I can really hear them and hear myself.
Oh yeah, I mean, you figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, so that's a
when
really
you're playing
nice
a trombone,
way to do
there's no way you can hear anything else anyway.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
anyway. Any other questions?
I just thank you guys so much. I think what I almost need too is a recording of Deb doing the rhythm, which went by too fast for me to hear the changes in the chords. But having the chart is going to help me, and then once I get the chords down, but that moment just went by really quickly.
Well, you know what? Why don't I mean, you've got the link to the Google Drive, right? So I'll make something and put
this
it in the Google Drive.
This video will remain on Facebook at least for a bit.
Duh.
So
Right.
easy enough to revisit.
Right. That's great.
And then, Francis, if you can't find it, just let me know and I'll point you to the link.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Of course.
Anybody have any simple or esoteric or in between questions?
Well, then I think we can all offer a hartzigen Shanam Dank to both of you, Dev and Dan, for doing such a wonderful job tonight and accommodating our West Coast schedule. Thank you so much for making it happen. Other than that, I just want to say thank you to everybody for attending today. It's always wonderful to see some familiar faces. We will continue our workshop series. Next month, we will be hosting Ethel Rame and Sarah Meyerson for some vocal workshops. Yes, again, just it's a big mishpucha here. So please do join us for those programs. If you need to find them, you can always Google UCLA Jewish music, join our mailing list, easy enough to find. Again, thank you to the Lowell Milken Center for Music of American Jewish Experience and the David Vickter Foundation for making this possible.